Hey everyone, Eric here, and as I was telling you last video, I have something real interesting to show you that is going to be one of the next projects on this channel. Anyways, here we go. This is a 1933 Cadillac V12. 370 cubic inches if I remember correctly, 3 1/8 inch bore, I believe a 4-inch stroke. It has been partially disassembled, aluminum block, has one piston still left in it. It is actually an overhead valve engine with hydraulic lifters, I believe the first one. The thing's actually not in too bad a shape, and all we're doing is we're going to see if we can get it back together and running. It is one of the more interesting engines I've seen in a long time. There's a fuel pump still on it. That's a crankcase breather. The extended bell housing kind of gives you a hint of its age, but other than that, it's actually a pretty modern design. The rest of the motor came in pieces. We have a box that's falling apart, some copper head gaskets, a couple of oil pans, rods, pistons, etc. But here's the head itself. The head, if you notice, all of the ports are on the one side. It's not a cross-flow head. Shaft mounted cast iron rockers with adjusters. This motor is set up like it's two 6-cylinder motors, mirror images of each other, with both the intake and exhaust on the outside of the motor, nothing in the actual V. The shaft type rockers are very reminiscent of later Chryslers, and the valves themselves are very interesting designs. 1.4 something inches. They're small. Intake and exhaust are the same size. Dual springs and modern style locks in them with an odd design on the retainer. One thing that's interesting is they're roughly the same size and same seat and over the nose pressure as a big block Chevy. So we're going to see if we can retrofit it with those. All the valves in this thing are pretty rough, so we're going to be looking at maybe replacing some valves. Some more interesting parts. That's the connecting rod. As you can see, it is a long one. These are the push rods. They are aluminum tubes with large diameter cups and a large diameter ball on the bottom, which is very interesting. The pistons themselves, as you can see here, have not a pinch bolt, but an actual through bolt, and that's what holds the pin in place. That's the other 11 pistons. Underneath this is the rods, and everything was designed to be as aesthetically pleasing as possible. There's no wires that you can see on these things. There's no no extraneous really anything. They're just a really interesting design. The rockers aren't seized, they're a little stiff, but we're going to have to pull them apart anyways. There is about a 3.5 foot long camshaft in the block itself with hydraulic lifters down in here. The crankcase and the actual cylinder liners and pistons, or cylinder liners and deck here, is separate, and as you can see down there, actually unbolts from the crankcase. So we're going to see about pulling all that off and see what we can do with it. The crank itself has some rust on it. It's been sitting apart for a very long time, but the bores are not too bad. We might be able to get away with just honing them and reusing the pistons, but we'll see. There's no broken head studs. There's no broken rockers. We seem to have most of the pieces. We think we're missing some bolts, but all the bolts are just very common. Just a altogether interesting motor.